Clara Morgan adjusted the white collar of her blouse for the third time that night, tugging it until it sat just above her name tag. The restaurant's chandeliers flickered like nervous glances. Soft, expensive lighting meant to make the powerful feel even more untouchable. Table 6. A corner booth. Private, curtained from view. Reserved 2 days in advance by a name everyone at Lavoot recognized. Jameson Vale. Billionaire tech visionary. Startup savant. A man who wore tailored suits like second skin and gave interviews that felt like sermons. Clara brought over the menus with her best customer service smile. "Mr. Vale, good evening." "Welcome back." Jameson looked up, his expression unreadable but polite. "Thank you, Clara." He always remembered her name. He tipped well. He was quiet, polished, but always detached. The kind of man who smiled with just his mouth. Across from him sat someone new. Victor Crane, she learned later. She didn't recognize him immediately. Slick hair, salt and pepper beard, expensive watch tapping against a glass of bourbon. He was older, smirking like he owned the room. And Jameson. Clara's gut tightened the moment she caught Victor's eyes. There was no polite distance. His stare slid across her body like oil on water, stopping just long enough to make her skin crawl. "Looks like the help's gotten prettier since last time," Victor said, barely bothering to lower his voice. Clara froze for half a second. Jameson didn't flinch. "We're ready to order," he said calmly, as if Victor hadn't spoken. "The dry-aged ribeye for me. Rare, Victor?" Victor licked his teeth. "I'll have whatever she's recommending." His eyes flicked down to Clara's name tag again, and she felt the weight of it like a brand. "You have a favorite, sweetheart?" She smiled tightly. "The duck confit is popular. Would you like a wine pairing?" "Only if you're serving it." Jameson turned sharply. "Victor," but Clara cut in. "Of course. I'll get that started." She walked away, her heart thudding in her ears. Her jaw clenched hard. This wasn't new. She'd dealt with men like Victor since she was 16. At diners, nightclubs, grocery stores. Men who believed politeness was consent. Who laughed when you flinched. But tonight felt different. Darker. Like she wasn't the only one being watched. She kept her head down the rest of the shift. But their voices carried when they thought no one was listening. Which they always did. "You're too soft on them," Victor said, somewhere between laughter and disgust. "They're toys, Jameson. You wind them up, watch them beg, then toss them when they break." Jameson said nothing. "You still seeing that yoga instructor?" Victor added. "What was her name, Bria?" "Breezy? I liked her. Had a mouth like a prayer." Clara turned sharply in the hallway. Her hand shook as she filled a glass with ice. She pressed her fingers against the cold to feel something clean. She couldn't stop hearing that word. Toys. The way he said it. The casual violence in it. She wasn't naive. She'd watched the news. She knew the headlines. The settlements. The silences. Back in the kitchen, the hostess, a 19-year-old NYU sophomore named Lacey, returned from table 6 looking pale. "He asked me if I do private hosting." Her voice cracked. "Then he asked me if I liked yachts." Clara exhaled, a slow, heavy breath. She looked at Lacey. Really looked at her. Too young, too eager to impress, too afraid to say no. She saw herself. 20 minutes later, Clara walked back to the table with the check. Jameson was scrolling through something on his phone. "Victor was gone. You're alone?" she asked, careful. Jameson didn't look up. Car came for him early. "Business in LA." Clara hesitated. "Can I say something?" Now he looked up, eyes narrowing, curious. "Of course," she lowered her voice. "That man, Victor. He made my staff uncomfortable. And not in a demanding customer way. In a predatory way. You should be careful. I've seen his type before." Jameson stared at her, not angry, not shocked, just still. "You're not the first to say that," he said finally. "Then maybe listen," she replied. He didn't smile. He nodded slow. "Thank you, Clara." Back in the locker room, she sat on the bench, peeled off her apron, and stared at the inside of her purse. "Do something." Her sister's voice echoed in her head. "Don't just survive. Fight." She grabbed her notepad, tore off a page, wrote in careful block letters, "Your friend is dangerous. Protect the women around you." She folded the paper, slid it into the check sleeve, and left the restaurant without another word. Clara woke up the next morning to Lily climbing into bed, warm and sleepy.
"Mama, there's a shiny car outside."
Still groggy, Clara frowned. What kind of shiny? Like a robot. It's in the driveway. There wasn't a driveway. There was just the cracked curb in front of her building, always blocked by trash cans and delivery trucks. Clara threw on her robe and ran to the window. A black Maserati Quattroporte idled quietly at the curb. New, gleaming, driver in a suit. Engine purring like a beast with secrets. A note under the wiper. She didn't touch it, just stared at the car like it might explode. Eventually, she walked down barefoot on concrete. The driver stepped out. "Delivery for Clara Morgan," he said, opening the door. "I didn't order a car." "It's yours, ma'am. Paid in full." She looked at the note, heart hammering. No signature. Just 4 words, "You were right." She stared at the handwriting. She wasn't sure if it was a gift, a threat, or something else entirely. And she wasn't sure which scared her more. The Maserati was still there. Clara stood in the hallway of her apartment, staring through the peephole like it was a sniper scope. Down below, the suited driver stood at parade rest beside the car, sunglasses on despite the gray morning sky. Her hands trembled as she poured cereal for Lily. The clink of spoon on bowl sounded too loud in the small kitchen. Her daughter, bless her, didn't notice the tension slicing through the air. "Can we keep it?" Lily asked, swinging her feet under the table. "I want to go fast." Clara managed a tight smile. "It's not for us, baby." She picked up her phone. No missed calls, no texts, just that note still burning in her coat pocket. "You were right. Corey J., the valet at the Vale Tower, didn't ask questions when she pulled up. He shouldn't have." She looked like a threat, wrinkled blouse, circles under her eyes. A mother who hadn't slept all night because someone dropped a weapon disguised as a thank you on her doorstep. "I'm here to return the car," Clara told the receptionist coldly. "And to see Mr. Vale." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment?" Clara slid the key fob across the desk. "Tell him it's about the Maserati. He'll understand." The elevator ride up to the 52nd floor was too quiet. Clara stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls, pale, angry, exhausted, the kind of woman people underestimate until they regret it. When the doors opened, Jameson's assistant looked startled. "Ms. Morgan?" He stood just outside the office, clearly stalling. Clara walked past him. Jameson Vale's office looked exactly how she expected. Clean lines, white marble, a wall of glass overlooking the city like he owned it, which in a way he did. He stood as she entered. "Clara," she didn't sit. "I don't want your car," he exhaled. "It wasn't meant to intimidate you." "Then what the hell was it meant to do?" Thank you," he said simply. "You were right about Victor." "That's not nothing. You don't give a Maserati to a waitress because she was right." Her voice shook now, but not with fear, with fury. "You give her hush money. You give her leverage. You try to shut her up before she gets louder." His jaw tightened. "That's not what this is." "No?" She took a step forward. "Then why do I feel like I've been bought?" He paused, then nodded slowly. "Because you've had to be suspicious to survive." The words hit her chest like a soft blow. He gestured toward the glass wall. "Victor has a history I ignored for years. Rumors, lawsuits, payouts, things I let other people handle so I could stay clean." "Convenient." "Yes." He met her eyes. "Too convenient," she crossed her arms. "You knew." He didn't deny it. "I thought I could control him," he said finally. "I thought if I kept him close, I'd be safer than if I made him an enemy. And now I realize I was wrong. About a lot of things." Clara stared at him. The silence between them was thick with the unspoken. Regret, complicity, fear. Flashback. 17 years ago. Cheap motel room in Pennsylvania. The air conditioner rattled like it might explode. 16-year-old Clara sat on the carpet, hugging her knees, watching her little sister sleep on the bed. Her mom was passed out next to a man Clara didn't know. Another uncle. Another night. She whispered stories to her sister, fairy tales she made up. Worlds where men didn't lie, where girls could walk alone, where no one touched you without asking. The door creaked. Clara flinched. "Present." "Why did you say yes?" she asked, softer now. "Why send the car? Why not just call the police?" Jameson looked tired. "Because when men like Victor fall, they don't go quietly. I needed time to gather proof, leverage. And I thought maybe, if I gave you something, you thought I'd stay quiet, she finished. I thought you'd be safe. Clara almost laughed.
Safe? You think a car makes me safe?
He didn't answer. I have a daughter, she added. You don't send strangers in suits to our front door. You don't put a target on us and call it a gift. I didn't mean to frighten you. Well, you did. She turned to leave, then stopped. I saw what your friend did to that hostess. She's barely out of high school. Jameson nodded, guilt shadowing his face. I'll handle it. Clara looked back at him. You better. Because if you don't, I will. Meanwhile, across the city inside the upper floor of a penthouse suite, Victor Crane was swirling ice in a crystal tumbler, watching the skyline bleed into dusk. He had already made the calls. The one to the publicist, the one to the lawyer, and the one to the fixer, the man who cleaned up messes without asking where they came from. He sat on the balcony now, barefoot, phone pressed to his ear. I think our golden boy has grown teeth, he murmured. A laugh crackled on the other end. About time. Victor smiled coldly. There's a girl. A waitress. Clara something? You want her gone? No, he sipped his bourbon. Not yet. I want to know everything about her. Who she lives with. Where she sleeps. What she fears. He hung up before the reply. Then he leaned back, eyes on the city below. You should have stayed small, Clara, he whispered. Back in Harlem. Clara tucked Lily into bed, her head still spinning. The apartment was too quiet. The shadows too sharp. She double-checked the locks. Then checked them again. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. She powered it off. In the bathroom, she stared at herself in the mirror. She wanted to cry but wouldn't give herself the permission. Instead, she took a pen and paper and started listing names. Lawyers, advocacy groups, journalists. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew one thing. She'd survived worse than men like Victor Crane. The morning headlines had nothing to do with Victor Crane, which meant things were going well. He sat alone in his corner office at Vail Dynamics, sleeves rolled up, jacket off, a fresh espresso steaming beside a folder he'd marked CM in black pen. His assistant had compiled a neat dossier, Clara Morgan's employment record, income statements, social media, even an outdated restraining order filed against her ex. Messy, but manageable, nothing a little spin couldn't dilute. Victor's fingers drummed across the table. She's clever, he muttered. The kinds of girls who got away were always the ones who thought first, felt later, the ones who watched from shadows. He hated clever girls. In the boardroom, Jameson Vale was late, again. Victor watched him enter, face drawn, distracted. A dozen high-level execs sat at the table, but their eyes followed Jameson like planets around a sun. Victor slid a folder across the glass. Shanghai contract's ready. Just needs your signature. Jameson opened the file, scanned it, didn't speak. Victor leaned in. Something wrong? Jameson didn't look up. Where's the original procurement clause? It was rewritten. We had issues with the IP transfer terms. Jameson raised an eyebrow. Without my approval? Victor smiled. We're on a deadline, Jamie. You've been preoccupied. The room went silent. Jameson closed the file slowly. Don't rewrite anything without me. Not again. It wasn't loud, but it was final. Victor's smile twitched. So that's how it's going to be. Later that day, Jameson sat alone in his private office, 2 floors above the executive wing. He pulled up legal settlement records from a restricted drive, records Victor didn't know he still had access to. 10 years of payouts, NDAs, arbitration filings from women inside the company, assistants, interns, even engineers, all with one common thread: Victor Crane. Jameson stared at the screen. His temples throbbed. How many did I ignore? The numbers were all there. $40,000 here, $125,000 there. One even climbed past $300K after a physical incident on a company retreat in Morocco. Most had been buried in HR's internal archives. Buried by Victor's network, lawyers, PR firms, human resource specialists who'd been handpicked for their loyalty, not integrity. It wasn't just rot. It was systemic, and Clara's note, "Your friend is dangerous," and had kicked open the floodgates. He picked up his phone. "Avery," he said when the line connected. I need to ask you something off the record. Meanwhile, across town, Victor met with Leland Carter, the company's head of legal affairs. Damage control, Victor said as he poured himself a drink. Clara Morgan. I want her discredited. Leland hesitated. We don't even know what she's planning. She's planning something. Girls like her always are. They stew, they gather allies, and then they drag you into the sun and act surprised when you burn. Leland looked uneasy. There's no formal complaint. I didn't say legal, Victor snapped. I said discredit. Her ex has a record. She's working class. Get creative. Leland nodded slowly. He didn't like it, but he wouldn't say no. That's why he still had a job. Victor finished his drink, watching the ice melt. It's not the threats that ruin you, he said softly. It's the survivors. Flashback 9 years ago. Yacht party off the coast of Ibiza. Laughter. Champagne. A 23-year-old intern named Elise standing too close to the edge. Victor's hand on her lower back. Jameson looking the other way. The girl never filed charges, but she never returned to work either. And she wasn't the last. Back in Harlem, Clara opened her front door to find a manila envelope tucked under her welcome mat. No name. No return address, inside a USB drive and a single sheet of paper. Thought you might want to know what he's done to others. A friend? Clara stared at it like it might explode. Her hands trembled as she slid the USB into her laptop. Video, files, documents, testimonies, women. Dozens of them. Clips of depositions, emails, screenshots of internal messages where Victor had joked about retraining junior staff. Legal filings never made public. Her heart pounded. This wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. Jameson Vale sat in the dark of his high-rise, watching the skyline blink like distant distress signals. Victor had called 3 times. Left one voicemail. You don't want to make me your enemy, Jamie, not after everything I've cleaned up for you. Jameson hadn't responded, because Victor was right. He had cleaned up for years, and Jameson had let him, out of fear, out of convenience, out of the cold hard calculus that said reputation is currency. But now, he owed something. To Clara, to Lacey, to Elise, to the silence that haunted his empire. He picked up the phone and dialed a secure line. I need a full audit, he said. Every settlement, every NDA signed since 2011. I don't care who tries to stop it. Victor, across the city, was already preparing for war. He knew Jameson, knew his guilt, knew that once men like him started peeling back layers, they didn't stop until they were bleeding, which meant Clara Morgan was the key. Break her, and everything else collapsed. He opened his laptop, typed her name, and smiled. The kitchen sink gurgled like it was choking on rust. Clara stood barefoot in pajamas, staring at the unpaid gas bill on the counter. The bold red letters screamed final notice like it was a death sentence. She rubbed her eyes. 3 hours of sleep. Her shift started again in 6. Behind her, Lily was trying to pour cereal without spilling the milk. Her legs dangled off the kitchen chair, pink socks mismatched. Mama, Lily said carefully. Are we going to be okay? Clara turned, smiled, lied. Always. She walked over, fixed the milk, and kissed the top of her daughter's head. Lily didn't need to know about lawyers or Maseratis or billionaires who sent silent warnings disguised as gifts. She just needed breakfast. Later, Clara dropped Lily at school, made the walk to the bus stop, and checked her phone. Blocked number. Voicemail. She pressed play. You don't know what you're doing, Clara. Stay in your lane. No voice. Just the message, cold, detached mail. She deleted it. Checked over her shoulder. The street was empty, but her skin prickled like someone was watching. At the diner across from the subway station, Clara sat with her laptop open, eyes locked on a news article she'd found from 2 years ago. Intern disappears after company retreat. Family still searching. Name, Marina Solis. Age, 21. Last seen, Vail Dynamics Conference in Lake Tahoe. Marina had been a junior data analyst, bilingual, first-generation college student. Went missing the same week Victor Crane was photographed with a group of female interns, champagne in hand. Police ruled it a runaway. Clara stared at Marina's photo. Wide brown eyes, dark curls, quiet smile. She looked like someone Clara could have waited tables with. could have shared rent with, could have been. And now she was gone. Clara's stomach churned, not because it was surprising, but because it wasn't. That evening, Clara sat on the floor of a community center in Queens, surrounded by folding chairs and women with hollow eyes and guarded voices. The flyer had read, "Survivors of Power, Free Legal and Emotional Support." Hosted by AVA, Advocates for the Voiceless Alliance. She hadn't planned to talk. Just listen. But when someone mentioned a boss who offered promotions in exchange for silence, her hand went up before she could stop it. "My name's Clara," she said, "and I think I'm being followed." After the session, a woman in a gray coat approached her. Slim, mid-30s, no makeup. Braids tied into a low knot. "I'm Avery Cruz," she said. "I run the nonprofit." "You're the waitress." Clara froze. "Excuse me? You're the one who warned Vale about Crane." My inbox lit up after that story leaked. "I didn't leak anything." Avery raised an eyebrow. "So you're just here for the stale coffee and emotional warfare?" Clara gave a dry laugh. "Sure, something like that." Avery leaned against the wall. "You want to bring him down?" Clara paused. "I want to survive, and I want my daughter to be safe," Avery nodded. "Then you're going to need help. The kind with subpoenas and digital forensics. Not just gut instinct. I don't have money for lawyers. I didn't ask for money." Avery pulled out a card. "I asked if you wanted to fight." That night, Clara watched Lily sleep, her small fingers curled around a stuffed unicorn. She thought of the USB, the files, Marina Solis, the voicemail, the message she didn't need to hear to understand. Stay in your lane. But Clara didn't have a lane anymore. She had a war. The next morning, Clara met Avery at a co-working space in Brooklyn. Minimalist furniture and free coffee that smelled like it was brewed by guilt-ridden law students. "We're going to build a timeline," Avery said. "Victor's targets, incidents, locations, settlements." Clara pulled out a notebook already half full of scribbles and arrows, names, dates, details only someone who lived in fear would remember. "He's careful," Clara said. "No photos. No open communication. It's all filtered through assistants or private apps. Everyone leaves a footprint," Avery replied, "especially men who think they're untouchable." They spent hours combing public records, digging through online archives, and comparing Clara's notes to what Avery's team had gathered from other survivors. Names started to align. Elise, Marina, a girl named Taylor who disappeared from a Stanford internship program. Even Lacey, the hostess, had filed an anonymous HR report, buried the next day. It wasn't just a pattern, it was a system. Meanwhile, Victor sat in a black car outside a brownstone in Harlem, his driver idling quietly as he watched Clara's building. "You sure it's her?" he asked the man beside him. Tall, clean-cut ex-cop. The man nodded. "Name's on the lease. Kid's name is Lily Morgan. Father's doing 6 to 10 in Rikers. Domestic battery. Lots of old reports." Victor watched the window. "She's brave," he muttered. "I hate brave." Back in Brooklyn, Avery leaned over Clara's laptop. "There's something you need to see," she said. She pulled up a leaked deposition transcript from a former HR employee. The name was redacted, but the initials matched someone from the settlement records. "I watched him follow the girls," it read. "He knew which ones were vulnerable. Fresh interns, first-gen women of color. No connections. No lawyers," Clara blinked. "He hunted them." Avery didn't flinch. "And your note blew it open." Clara swallowed hard. Her hands clenched into fists. "I thought the car was a gift," she said. "A thank you." "It was a muzzle," Avery said. "They always send it pretty." Later that week, Clara picked Lily up from school and noticed a black SUV parked across the street. No plates, no driver visible. She gripped her daughter's hand tighter and walked faster. When she glanced back, the SUV was gone. At home, the lock felt different. She checked the door 3 times. Lily drew at the table while Clara texted Avery, "Someone's watching us." "I can feel it." The reply came fast. "You're not paranoid. Stay alert. I'll send someone." Clara stared out the window, rain streaking the glass like a warning. Across the street, a light flickered in an apartment she'd never seen occupied. She whispered under her breath, "I won't be afraid of you," but her voice shook when she said it. The hard drive was buried behind layers of dust and forgotten tech, an old lacy external Jameson hadn't touched in years. He found it in a cardboard box labeled Q1 Audits Legacy, shoved into the back of a supply closet no one but he and Victor used. It shouldn't have meant anything. But Jameson had been looking. For months now. Through contracts, settlements, encrypted folders, even pulling up terminated security logs from their earliest years at Veil Dynamics. And then this. A single file, a buried subfolder, no label, no password, just a date, July 17, 2018. He opened it. The screen filled with grainy surveillance footage, camera feed from the old Tahoe retreat. A hotel hallway, dim, empty, until a young woman, Marina Solis, stepped into frame. She looked nervous, kept checking her phone, glanced behind her, then came Victor's slick suit, drunk swagger, smiling. At first it was talking. Marina shook her head. Victor reached for her arm. She pulled back, and then Jameson's stomach turned. He slammed the laptop shut. He poured a drink. Didn't sip it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number he'd saved a week ago. Clara Morgan. Clara sat at the kitchen table, helping Lily cut shapes from construction paper when the call came in. Unknown number. She stepped out into the hallway, answering in a whisper. Hello? It's Jameson. She froze. How did you get this number? I need to see you. Why? I found something. An hour later, they met in a borrowed legal office downtown, neutral territory arranged by Avery. The walls were bare. The chairs uncomfortable. Clara sat across from Jameson like she was ready to be cross-examined. Jameson placed the hard drive on the table between them. It's Marina, he said quietly. I found footage. Clara didn't touch it. And what do you want from me? He exhaled. Help me build a case. Clara narrowed her eyes. Why me? Because you're not afraid of him, she laughed once. I'm terrified of him. But you stood up anyway. Silence. He leaned forward. Clara, I should have seen it years ago. Victor, he was grooming girls at my company. My name is on every contract, every payout, every silence. You want to feel clean again? She said bitterly. You think this makes you the hero? No, Jameson said softly. I think you might be the hero, and I'm asking to help. Clara stepped outside, head spinning. Avery was waiting across the street. Well? Avery asked. He has a tape. Avery blinked. Of what? Clara looked down. Of Marina. Right before she vanished, Avery went still. We go to the press, she said. We take this to every reporter who won't sell out to a settlement offer. Clara hesitated. Clara, this could end him. Clara shook her head. It could end me too. That night, Clara lay in bed while Lily slept beside her, clutching a tattered unicorn. She stared at the ceiling. Images returned. Memories. The knock at the motel door. Her mother gone for hours. A man's hand on her arm. Her sister crying in the other room. The smell of whiskey and sweat and silence. She never reported it. No one would have believed her anyway. Poor girls didn't get justice. They got tougher. Or they got ruined. She rolled onto her side and whispered to the dark, I don't want her to grow up thinking this is normal. And she made her choice. The next morning, the news broke. A second girl missing. Her name was Jade Nguyen, a 24-year-old coder who had been part of Victor's mentorship program. She was last seen leaving a private dinner in the city hosted by Veil Dynamics. Police called it an unfortunate accident. Witnesses said she was drinking. Probably wandered off. Maybe fell in the river. No foul play suspected. Clara stared at the TV screen. Same script. Different girl, same machine. Different casualty. She turned to Avery. We go public, now. Later that day, in a glass-walled office at the Times, Clara sat across from investigative reporter Naomi Chen, hands folded tight in her lap. Her voice shook as she spoke, but she didn't stop. She gave names, dates, the car, the USB, the threats. She gave them Marina, Jade, Lacey, herself. Naomi listened, quiet but sharp, her pen moving faster with each detail. This could take down half the board, she said. I'm not here to collapse a company, Clara said. I'm here because women are disappearing and no one gives a damn until a man decides to feel guilty. Naomi nodded. Then let's make them care. Meanwhile, at Vale Tower, Victor watched the live news alert crawl across the TV. Whistleblower accuses tech empire of decades-long cover-up. His jaw clenched. He turned to his assistant. "Get the lawyers now." Then he walked into his office, shut the door, and stared at his reflection in the window. He still had cards to play, and if Clara Morgan thought she was going to beat him, she hadn't learned the final rule. Power doesn't lose. It adapts. At first, there was silence. Then the noise came. The story ran late Tuesday night. Front page. Naomi Chen's investigation spanned 4,000 words and featured the headline, "Silenced, the whistleblower who warned a billionaire," and the empire she threatens to expose. It included interviews, allegations, screenshots. The footage from Jameson's recovered. Hard drive wasn't published, but it was confirmed. For 12 hours, Clara was a hero. By 18 hours, she was a target. Her phone didn't stop ringing. Numbers she didn't know. People screaming into the receiver. Some calling her brave, most calling her worse. She stopped reading the comments after the fifth one mentioned Lily by name. Typical single mom looking for a payday. This is what you get for ruining a man's life. She'll disappear like the others once she cashes the check. At 2:17 a.m., someone posted her address on a forum. By 3 a.m., the landlord called. "Clara, we've had complaints. You're attracting attention." "You mean threats?" she snapped. "It's just not good for the building." She hung up. By morning, her boss at the restaurant sent a single text. "We have to let you go until this dies down." No apology, no explanation, just survival. Clara sat on her apartment floor, knees pulled to her chest, watching Lily color in the corner. She'd done the right thing. She knew that. So why did it feel like she was being burned alive? Meanwhile, Victor Crane stepped out of a black SUV onto the steps of a Manhattan courthouse, flanked by attorneys and custom-tailored contrition. "Mr. Crane, did you assault your employees? Are the allegations true? Have you spoken with Mr. Vale?" Victor paused just long enough for the cameras to find him. His smile was a performance, sorrowful, presidential. "I've spent my life building opportunity," he said softly. "I will not let lies destroy that." Lawsuit filed. Victor Crane, Fries Jameson Vale. Cause, defamation, breach of fiduciary duty, malicious intent. Victor wasn't going down. He was going to sue his way through it, turn the tables, and drag Jameson down with him. The message was clear. You come for me, I burn everything. In a quiet office in Brooklyn, Clara, Avery, and a junior associate named Emmett reviewed discovery documents dumped by Vale Dynamics under court order. Most of it was noise. Contracts, stock options, conference budgets. But Avery caught it, buried in an export file labeled Q3 Expense Review Discretionary. There it was, wire transfer log 2. Pearl Atlantic Consulting. Reputation Management Services. Amount, $175,000. Emmett pulled up the business. Shell Corp registered in Belize. But wait, look at the dates. The payouts lined up with each of the settlement timelines Clara had mapped. Elise, Marina, Lacey. It wasn't hush money. It was an operational system, and now they had paper. Avery leaned back. This could be it. Clara didn't smile. It won't matter unless someone makes it matter. That night, Victor went live on national TV, not through a lawyer. Not behind a podium, one-on-one, prime time. With a sympathetic host, his voice was calm, poised, almost emotional. "I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. But these accusations? They're part of a coordinated attack. My business partner wants control. And he's using vulnerable people to get it," he paused. "Ms. Morgan is troubled. I feel for her, I do. But this isn't justice. This is vengeance." By morning, a poll on a business network site showed 62% of readers believed Victor. A Twitter thread went viral claiming Clara had been seen flirting with powerful men at her restaurant. An ex-boyfriend posted a grainy photo of her holding a beer, captioned, "She's no angel." She knew what she was doing. And the worst part, Lily came home from school quiet. "Someone said you're in trouble," she said softly. Clara knelt down. "I'm not in trouble, baby. I'm just being loud about something scary." Lily nodded, eyes wide. "Can I be loud too?" Clara smiled, blinking back tears. "One day, when you're ready." Across town, Jameson sat with his own legal team, watching the smear campaign spread. "You need to hit back," his lawyer said. "Hard?" "No," Jameson said. "Not yet, we've got proof, I know. But if I move too soon, it looks like a war between billionaires." "You're not worried about your company. I'm worried about Clara." Later that evening, Clara met Avery in a church basement where Ava hosted survivor groups. This time, she didn't hide in the back row. She stood up, introduced herself, and spoke. "My name is Clara Morgan. I was a waitress, a mom, someone who thought being invisible meant being safe. And then I saw something, and I said something, and now I'm not invisible anymore. I'm a target." She looked around the room. "I'm here to say it's worth it." Outside, across the street, a man sat in a car with the engine running. He wore no badge, no uniform, just a camera with a long lens. He raised it, snapped 3 shots of Clara walking out beside Avery, then drove off. Victor always knew where to look. The courtroom was colder than Clara expected. She sat behind her lawyer's desk, hands folded in her lap, listening as the attorneys argued over admissibility, character witnesses, and defamation law so convoluted it felt designed to bury truth under paperwork. Victor wasn't even looking at her. He sat across the room, stone-faced, controlled, surrounded by a legal army. Designer suit. Subtle smirk. He looked like the victim. The public pressure had started to shift, in his favor. 2 former interns who'd spoken anonymously on the record had suddenly recanted. One deleted her social media. The other accepted a sudden job offer overseas. 3rd woman, a former assistant, went live on a podcast to say Clara was exaggerating for attention. Avery threw her phone across the office. "Do you smell that?" she hissed. "That's hush money burning its way through every crack we find." Jameson had gone quiet. Clara hadn't heard from him in over a week, not since Victor's team leaked internal emails suggesting Jameson had known about misconduct and done nothing. He hadn't denied it. He hadn't defended her either. "Of course he's retreating," Avery said. "He's trying to keep his board from voting him out." Clara didn't say anything. She just felt cold. That night in her apartment, Clara watched Lily sleep with her arms wrapped around the unicorn Clara had stitched back together with fishing line and stubborn hope. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered it. Breath held. A voice soft, trembling. "I worked for Victor. In logistics. I saw the payments, the travel arrangements, the names. I want to help, but I'm scared." Clara sat up. "What's your name?" "Does it matter?" Silence, then, "If I send you something, will you protect me?" Clara swallowed hard. "I'll try." The next morning, an email arrived with no body. Just an attachment. It was a spreadsheet. Dozens of entries, flights, hotel rooms, per diems, and names. One of them was Marina Solis. Another was Jade Nguyen. Clara printed it, brought it to Avery. Avery stared at the numbers. "This is a logistics matrix," she said. "It's how they moved them, managed them, hid them." She paused. "If we can verify this, it could blow the case open." Across town, Victor sat in his penthouse office, a glass of scotch in hand, staring out at a skyline he helped build. His assistant entered quietly. "Your mother called." Victor didn't turn. "Tell her I'm unavailable." She said it's urgent. Victor closed his eyes. A memory clawed its way to the surface. Flashback. Connecticut, 1989, 10 years old. Kneeling on cracked tile, his father's belt lying on the floor. His mother in the doorway, frozen, blood trickling from his temple. "You make men angry," his father had said. "You tempt them." Victor blinked, snapped back to the present. He took a long drink, whispered to no one. They were lucky to be noticed. Back in court, Clara sat alone. 2 more witnesses had dropped out. Another had been paid off, according to a reporter who texted her anonymously. "They're afraid. He has dirt on everyone." Even Avery looked tired now. "They're choking us with silence," she said, one by one. "Then I'll go on record," Clara said. Avery looked up. "You understand what that means?" Clara nodded. "They'll smear me harder. Say I'm unstable. Say I'm lying. And Lily?" Clara's voice broke. "I'll teach her to survive it." The next morning, Clara filed a formal declaration. She would testify publicly. Victor's lawyers immediately objected, calling it a transparent PR stunt. The judge allowed it. The date was set. Clara would take the stand. That night, someone keyed her car. A note was left on her windshield. "You ruined your life. Don't ruin hers." She looked around the parking lot. No one there. She picked up the note with shaking hands and crumpled it in her fist. Flashback. Years earlier, Clara, 17, sobbing in a hospital bathroom. Her sister Lila bruised, silent. Their mother in the waiting room pretending not to know. "You don't tell," Lila had whispered. "It just makes it worse." Clara stood in the street, wind biting at her face. She looked down at the crumpled note, then up at the sky, and made another choice. Not this time. The courtroom was a theater, and Clara was the show. Press lined the back wall, pens twitching. A camera crew had set up outside the building. Activists held signs. Detractors screamed conspiracy. Inside, the air was tight, hot. Clara sat at the plaintiff's table next to Avery, dressed simply, hair tied back, no makeup. Not playing to the gallery, playing to the truth. The judge entered. "All rise." Everyone stood. The clerk read the case title aloud like a funeral announcement. Then the trial began. Avery rose for opening arguments. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't point fingers. She spoke like a woman who had seen too much and stayed quiet for too long. This isn't just a case about a billionaire or a whistleblower. It's a case about a culture of silence. About who we protect and who we punish for speaking. She paced slowly. My client, Clara Morgan, didn't want this attention. She was a waitress, a mother. She simply saw something and refused to pretend she didn't. Her gaze landed on the jury. Victor Crane built an empire not on innovation, but intimidation. He bought silence. He punished dissent. And for decades it worked. A breath, but not anymore. She sat. Clara gripped the edge of the table. Then Victor's attorney, sleek and surgical, rose with a different tone, pitying, sharp-edged. "We don't deny Ms. Morgan had a difficult life, but hardship doesn't excuse defamation. She's not a whistleblower, she's a woman with a grudge." He pulled out a file. Her ex, in prison, her finances, in disarray. Her mental health, well. He let the sentence dangle in the air like a noose. Clara's pulse spiked. He was going to dig deep, and he did. By mid-afternoon, Clara's entire past had been spread open like pages of a diary. No one should have read photos from her teen years, hospital, reports from an overdose, a therapist's note from a trauma evaluation after Lily's father was arrested. The phrase hypervigilant delusions was read aloud. "She sees danger everywhere," the lawyer said. "It's not abuse, it's paranoia," Avery objected. The judge sustained, but the damage was done. Clara felt stripped. Like every part of her that had ever broken was now on display. During recess, she sat alone in the witness room. Avery joined her, face tight with fury. "I told you they'd go for your throat," she said. Clara nodded. "It's okay." "It's not. I've survived worse." Avery softened. "You don't have to prove you're bulletproof." Clara looked up. "I'm not, but I'm still standing." Jameson took the stand on day 2. He looked tired, not broken, but bent. The prosecutor questioned him first. "When did you first suspect Victor Crane of misconduct?" "I think part of me always knew." "And what did you do?" "I convinced myself it wasn't my problem." Until Clara Morgan made it impossible to keep pretending. Silence. "She saved lives," Jameson added. "Including mine." Victor glared from across the room. Then his lawyer stood. "Mr. Vale, you were business partners for 2 decades. You shared profits, decisions, cover-ups?" Jameson's mouth twitched. "I didn't cover anything up." "No, you signed NDAs, oversaw settlements." "I didn't know the extent. You didn't want to know." That time, Jameson didn't answer. The lawyer smiled. "Thank you." No further questions. When Clara was called to testify, the room went silent. The gallery leaned in, some with sympathy, some with knives. She was sworn in. Avery asked the first question. "Clara, why did you write the note?" She swallowed hard. "Because I saw something." In Victor's eyes. In his voice. It was the same look I'd seen in another man years ago. "What did it make you feel?" "Like I was 7 years old again, hiding under a bed while my sister screamed." A murmur from the gallery. The judge tapped her gavel. Order? Avery nodded, quiet. And when you gave that note to Mr. Vale, did you want anything in return? No, I wanted to be invisible again. Then why speak up now? Clara looked straight at Victor. Because invisible girls keep dying. Victor's lawyer rose. Slow and theatrical. Ms. Morgan, you've had a difficult life. Yes. Abuse, addiction, poverty. Yes. Would it be fair to say you see threats where others might not? Sometimes. So it's possible you misread Mr. Crane? No. You're sure? Clara's voice rose. Not loud, but clear. I know what a predator looks like. The lawyer didn't blink. You claim to speak for other women, victims who've refused to testify, who've denied your story. Is it possible? They don't see themselves as victims? Clara inhaled, exhaled. Survival looks like silence sometimes. The lawyer stepped closer. You want us to believe you, but you've lied before. To doctors, to teachers, to police. Yes, Clara said softly, because I was trying to stay alive. So what makes this different? Clara's hands tightened on the railing. Because I'm not just trying to stay alive anymore. I'm trying to live, a pause. Her voice cracked. And I want other girls to live too. The courtroom was still. Then, movement at the door. A woman entered. Late 20s. Corporate blazer. Eyes red. Avery turned surprised. Whispered, "That's Lacey." Clara blinked. The hostess from the restaurant. Lacey walked straight to the gallery and took a seat behind Clara. Then another woman entered. Then another, 7 in total. All had been names in Avery's files. One by one they filled the back row, silent, unmoving. A wall of survivors. Victor turned, saw them. His expression didn't change, but his fingers twitched a crack. Later, after the courtroom emptied, Clara stood on the steps as reporters swarmed. Avery shielded her. But Clara raised a hand, just one, not to speak, just to say, "I'm here. I'm not going away." Inside the courthouse, a clerk walked into chambers with a sealed envelope. Inside it, a deposition Avery had fought months to unseal. The name at the top, Rhonda Delaney. Former VP, Vale Dynamics. Her statement detailed forced silence, misconduct witnessed firsthand, and instructions directly from Victor. The judge's clerk read it once, then again. A gavel would fall soon, but not yet. The courtroom had never felt quieter. 12 jurors filed in, stone-faced, tired. They carried with them a single sheet of paper, the weight of it cracking the air like thunder just before the downpour. Clara couldn't breathe. Avery rested a hand on her arm. "Whatever happens," she whispered. "You changed the ending." Clara nodded. But the ache in her chest told her nothing was guaranteed. Outside the courthouse, the steps had become a battleground. Protesters waved hand-painted signs. "Believe women." "Clara is a liar." "Justice for survivors." Trial by media. Drums. Chants. News vans stacked like vultures circling a carcass. Inside, the jury forewoman stood. She handed the paper to the bailiff. The judge opened it, eyed the room over his glasses, then he read, "On the matter of Crane versus Vale and Morgan, we find in favor of the defendants." Victor's jaw clenched. "And on the matter of counterclaims brought against Victor Crane," Clara's heart kicked, "we find the defendant liable on all counts, including defamation, emotional harm, and gross negligence of fiduciary responsibility." The words didn't land immediately. But then the room exhaled. A sound like someone had pulled a plug on a storm drain. Victor's lawyer stood, already preparing for appeal, but before he could speak, the court clerk stepped forward with a sealed folder. The judge opened it, then paused. "Mr. Crane," he said, voice sharp, "you are hereby notified that a federal grand jury has returned an indictment, sealed until this morning. You are being charged with conspiracy to commit sexual misconduct, obstruction of justice, and financial fraud involving interstate cover-ups. A beat. Bailiffs, take him into custody." Victor turned, stunned. "This is a circus," he muttered. "This is revenge." He looked at Clara, something wild behind his eyes. "You think you win? You'll always be the broken girl." Clara didn't blink, she didn't flinch, she simply said, "And you'll always be afraid of her." They cuffed him, walked him out. The courtroom didn't clap, it didn't cheer, it just watched, Silent, sober final. In the hallway, reporters swarmed. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. Clara, do you have a comment? Clara, are you vindicated? Clara, what comes next? She stepped outside, looked at the crowd. She thought she might feel triumphant. She didn't. She felt empty. Like something had been scraped out of her. The pain was still there. Just no longer being denied. Avery stood beside her. You did it. Clara shook her head. We did something. Doesn't feel like it. Avery smiled faintly. Then maybe it's just the beginning. 3 days later. Headline: Jameson Vale resigns as CEO of Vale Dynamics. He released a written statement. I enabled a system that rewarded silence. I benefited from complicity. I cannot undo the past, but I will not run from it. I believe Clara Morgan. I believe the women who came forward. And I believe Victor Crane belongs exactly where he's going. He didn't take interviews. He donated $10 million to a survivor fund. And then, quietly, disappeared. Some said he moved to Iceland. Others claimed he was hiding in the Berkshires. Clara didn't care. He'd done the bare minimum. But at least he'd done. That Avery Cruz received a 6-figure book deal. Working title: The System Isn't Broken, It's Working as Designed. She dedicated the first chapter to Clara, and the last one to the women who never made it to the stand. As for Clara, she went back to work, not as a waitress, but at AVA, Advocacy, Outreach, Survivor Counseling. Quiet work, hard work, real work. She still couldn't walk down certain streets without seeing Victor's face on a newspaper stand or hearing someone whisper behind her. Her landlord raised the rent. She paid it anyway. She didn't get movie offers, didn't get rich. What she got was harder to earn: peace. Sometimes when she and Lily walked past the courthouse, her daughter would look up and ask, "Is that where you told the truth?" Clara would nod. That's where I stopped being afraid of it. On a rainy Thursday morning, she stood by the window of her apartment sipping lukewarm coffee, watching Lily play on the floor. The city moved outside her window, indifferent, but she was different now. The girl who had once whispered warnings into linen napkins was now a woman who had stood before the world and refused to be silenced. Victor was in prison. Jameson was gone. Avery was on book tour, and Clara Morgan? Clara survived. The mail slot clanged softly against the hardwood floor. Clara glanced up from the kitchen table where Lily was drawing with crayons. A plain white envelope. Unmarked, no return address. Her heart caught. She held it in her hand like it was a fragile secret. Mommy. What is it? Lily's curious eyes looked up, a crayon smudge on her cheek. Just a letter, Clara said, forcing a smile. She slid a letter opener across the top, slowly, reverently. Inside, a folded piece of thick stationery, neat handwriting sprawled across the page. Clara, it began, I am sorry for everything. For the silence I kept, for the damage I caused by looking away. You were brave, braver than I was. This is late and it will never make up for what happened. But it's a start enclosed as a trust fund in Lily's name. Something I should have done years ago. No need to reply. Just know that I believe you. Jameson Vale, Clara's breath hitched. The letter trembled in her hands. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back. Lily tugged on her sleeve. Mommy? Clara folded the letter carefully. I'm okay, she said, pulling Lily close. Later that evening, Clara sat in her modest apartment, now decorated with the colorful drawings and stuffed animals Lily had collected over the year. The TV played softly in the background. Avery's nonprofit event was live streaming, celebrating survivors and raising funds for abuse prevention. Clara had spent the last 12 months working alongside Avery, helping women who once sat silent like her. It was grueling, heart-wrenching, but healing. She whispered a prayer of thanks. Lily climbed into Clara's lap, clutching a well-worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. Read it again, Mommy, her small voice begged. Clara smiled, the kind of smile that held both exhaustion and fierce love. She opened the book, her finger tracing the words. And the wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. Clara's voice softened. Because sometimes, the wild things have to go away. Lily's eyes fluttered closed. Clara kissed her forehead, but when Lily slept, Clara's eyes drifted to the dark window behind her. The city lights blurred in the rain outside, but Clara saw something else, a shadow that didn't belong. A chill curled in her stomach. Monsters don't always vanish, they just change their masks. But Clara was ready. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. She was a mother, a survivor, a warrior. And no matter what came next, she'd fight for Lily's safe world, even if it meant standing in the dark, staring down shadows. The letter sat folded on the table beside her, a fragile truce and a promise of complicated healing. And for now, that was enough.